minutes or so where we'll discuss some principles that I think will strengthen and transform your practice as an educator, as well as make time for some questions and answers towards the end. And if you're with us tonight, I'd like you to just give me a shout out. Let me know what state you're viewing this from, and let me know who's out there tonight. It's kind of hard when you're all alone in your home office here in the Twin Cities of Minnesota, but let me know you're there and just kind of where you're coming from tonight. And if you're checking this out for the first time, my passion is to really provide educators with the tools and the resources to transform and strengthen the way that we teach, whether it's online or traditional, so our students develop the clinical judgment required for safe practice. And so just a quick announcement I want to just kind of start with is that about 3 weeks ago, we had a virtual conference that Keith RN sponsored for the first time ever. It had a theme of preparing for practice. And I want you to know that if you missed that, and there's going to be an opportunity for you to, I'm going to repurpose each of the 4 sessions into webinars that can be purchased individually on Keith RN, complete with continuing education hours and a link to do that. And so if you missed it and you kind of, kicking yourself, I just want you to know that you will get that second chance and hope to have more information on that in the next week or so. So please be looking for that. And 2 weeks ago, I shared on this Facebook Live the details of my dissertation study on the effect of unfolding case studies and the development of critical thinking. And I had some very profound insights that I think are very helpful for educators from the study, as well as some things that we all can learn from. And I want you to know that this Facebook Live, as well as all the others, are available, are recorded automatically on my Facebook page, Keith RN, Think Like a Nurse. And if you haven't subscribed to that page, you need to, so you can just be automatically reminded when I go live in the future. And basically, you can go on that page and access the videos link, and you can access, we've been doing this for now 3 months, believe it or not. It's gone quickly. And the bottom line is some great content, some great topics there. But, I want to catch you up to speed. I recognize the need to pause about, I completed my PhD just about the first of this last month, the 1st of August. And the bottom line is I have been running on fumes. And I have recognized that, I was feeling the burn. I think just like educators are who are struggling, many of them, with the transition to online, the pandemic, the complete fruit basket upset that we're all experiencing right now in nursing education. And that takes a toll on your soul, your spirit, your motivation, your why. And you begin to get some crazy thoughts and some crazy talk. And I think it's really important that, I went up to the North Shore of Minnesota, which is Lake Superior. I had some great pictures that I was going to just briefly share with you, but unfortunately, the video software is not allowing me to share my screen today. So you know what? That's okay. I will not bore you with the with the slideshow, but we had waterfalls, Gooseberry Falls, and Tetagoosh State Park. If you're from the Midwest and have been to the North Shore, it is restorative. And I had a cabin. Actually a nice lodge right on Lake Superior. I could just sit outside, look at the lake, the beauty of creation, bald eagles flying by. And I can tell you, the glory and the beauty of creation restores your soul. And it's in essence the importance, I think, for all of us at times to really slow it down a notch. And as I just had a few days to reflect, to look back, to kind of say, what am I going to do differently? To go the distance. I'm 57. I'm not going to live forever. I want to make the last chapter of my life count in all that I do. And I just felt a clear impression for 3 things that really spoke to my heart. That really is the basis for this Facebook Live. So this is going to be kind of what I would consider a soft session, but I think it's probably the most important session I've done over the last 3 months, because the bottom line is that if we don't transform and strengthen the spirits and the souls and the motivation and the why of what we do as nurse educators, nothing changes in nursing education. I'm going to talk about that and some implications for that. And so the 3 P's that I'm going to kind of share upon, that I'm going to build in this Facebook Live for you all tonight, are 3 P's. The first P is pace. What is your pace right now? Is it too fast, too slow, or just right? Your priorities. We can over time a slow fade. We're going to talk about really establishing putting first things first, as well as our purpose and our why. This is really probably the most important, because if teaching has lost its joy, you're disillusioned, you're no longer finding this fulfilling anymore or fun, it's not so much that, yes, our external circumstances have changed, but you know what? Your internal compass has changed. And that really is your why, your motivation. Why do you do what you do? And motivation does matter. And I really want to just help us all get clarity today. And I want you to reflect upon and think about, as far as just, what that why is for you. And kind of we'll talk about some practical strategies to kind of write that down and be really careful. Because, I had a couple of emails come through my in the last week that really was a wake-up call to me. I get emails from educators all across the country. And, a couple of them shared this in principle. I am so tired and disillusioned with nursing education right now. I find myself wondering if I should bother anymore. Patients are easier than students. How many of us have said exactly those words or thought those words? I'll raise my hand. I was at a time in my place within civility in a department where I just said, you know what? I can have less stress and more success in what I'm doing in the clinical setting, and almost threw my calling and my why away. Another educator wrote, I too have felt my joy slipping away over these past couple of months due to COVID-19, political and social unrest, etc. And I actually considered not teaching anymore. And these are red flags. And it's like, we've got to be in touch with this as educators, because if this doesn't, if we don't begin to deal with some of the things that are driving this, some of us are going to be willing to throw away our calling and our purpose, because I believe with all my heart that every one of you as nurse educators are right where you are for a reason. You have a calling. There's a purpose, and there's a reason why you chose nursing education and made some sacrifices to get there. And as we look at burnout, there are really 5 distinct stages of burnout. I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but I want you to know the very first stage of burnout is exhaustion. You're tired. You're weary. And it's not just like I didn't get enough sleep. It is a weariness of your spirit and your soul and your body. And despite the sleep you get, you're just always tired. That's a red flag, by the way, because if that doesn't get addressed, if you don't kind of do what I did to find the time, do something to break the cycle of the chain of just the way things are going, the platters and spinning are going way too fast. If you don't slow it down, you'll go into becoming indifferent, where you just begin not to care anymore about nursing education, student success, preparing for practice. It just becomes like a big fog. And then you begin to feel like a failure. Then you begin to personalize it and say, I'm a failure. I don't belong here anymore. And then the last stage is when you just check out, have your mental bags packed, waiting for retirement or another job. And you know what? I don't want that to happen to you. So if you're at any of these places, it's like you're literally on fire. It's like, and when you remember from the fire training, what do? What's the very first thing you do when you're on fire? Literally, stop, drop, and roll. You need to stop. You need to be still. and really recognize the need to restore. That's what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm really excited. The first P is pace. How fast is your gerbil wheel spinning right now? And you know what? I would love to get, some feedback in the chat. I'll kind of keep my eye to the right of my screen here. I'll just kind of see what people are saying. But the bottom line is, I want this to be as much of a dialogue as possible, despite this being a video chat. And we don't really have the Zoom ability to call you in and have you speak in, but they got the chat. So chat away and let me see what you're thinking. And you need to ask yourself the second part of this question, is this pace sustainable? How long can you go at this pace? Can you go another week, another month, another semester, the rest of the year? Because you know what? We've got to pace ourselves for what we are doing as nurse educators. It's a marathon, not a frenetic sprint. And, for myself, it's like I can identify with this in the sense that I've kind of gained a few pounds since the quarantine. And my daughter's a Beachbody coach. If you know about Beachbody, got some great workouts. But boy, you know what? When I try to keep up with some of those people on the Beachbody screen, I literally, within 5 minutes, I can't keep up their pace. Even though it's not fast for them, it's too fast for me. And literally within 5 minutes, I am rolling on the floor, just gasping for air. My pulse is 140. It's kind of embarrassing, to be honest with you. But you know what I learned and what my daughter said? Go at your own pace, Dad. And when you look around you in nursing education, we may see other educators frenetically doing this, and this. Are we subconsciously following the pace of others? And is it our pace? Because you know what? You're unique and you're not XYZ faculty, and you don't have to live up to anybody's expectations but your own. And so the bottom line is be really in tune with that and what that looks like. And I love this statement I read from a book. It says how important it is to move at the speed of soul. Everyone's moving around pretty frenetically, and many of us are spinning way too fast. But soul speed is that pace that nourishes and respects your spirit and soul, that you can have peace in the midst of the storm of a pandemic. You know what? Outside circumstances don't have to dictate our joy and our peace if we have something stronger within. And this is where our faith and I believe that God's strength can help us get through any storm. And for myself, I'm kind of preaching to myself here, guys, because you know what? I'm a type A driven dude. I get things done. And you know what? That serves well when you are an educator or have a small business. But you know what? Over time, it takes a toll. And you know what? You can't go the distance. And my heart for all of you as educators is that go the distance. Don't drop out of this race too quickly because you didn't pace yourself. And so I really want you to reflect, kind of like I did. You can do it tonight after this live stream. Reflect on your pace. Having the beauty of Lake Superior makes it really easy to think about life, and you can kind of just have that stillness. But go on your deck. It's nighttime. It's quiet. Think about your pace. Is it sustainable? And I just want you to kind of think about that and put that into practice. Second P, priorities. What is really most important in your life? And does your schedule practically reflect it? How many of us can say, oh, you know what, my wife, my spouse, my children, my XYZ, even my faith, all important. But does your schedule, it's really how you spend your time that dictates really what's really most important. What's your priorities? And I want you to think for a moment and kind of state, what's really important in your life, and does your schedule, and are you making time for what's really most important? Because you know what? There's something called the tyranny of the urgent. And I love that statement because what that really it's a great statement. It's actually an article titled by Charles Hummel that was written back in the 60s. You can get it on the internet. If you just Google Tyranny of the Urgent PDF by Charles Hummel, 7 pages. That is a must read. I would want to encourage all of you who are attending or watching this, whether it be live or on a recorded, get that PDF. It is powerful and profound. It just helps us to identify what's really most important in our life. Because the urgent, all the things we have to do as educators, the testing coming up, the revision of PowerPoints, and rewrite this, respond to that email inbox that's getting bigger and bigger hour by hour. You know what? It's basically, those urgent things keep us from what's most important. And, like the old Joni Mitchell song from the 60s, you don't know what you got till it's gone. And, for myself, I keep this, it's a reminder for me. This is my best friend, Dan Erickson. He died less than a year ago, a little over a year ago of lung cancer. Wasn't a smoker, loved God. And you know what? He was taken before his time. And it keeps me in check to recognize, I had prostate cancer less than a year ago, had surgery, but you know what? Slow growing by the grace of God, so I'm thankful for that. But the bottom line is none of us have tomorrow guaranteed. So are our life priorities reflecting that reality? And really have a value, have an attitude of gratitude over every day we have. You know what? Life is hard. Life can kind of suck sometimes, especially sometimes in nursing education. It's not rainbows and butterflies, and we know that. But what can you find to be thankful for? Because when you face things like cancer, like I have, or my best friend dying before his time, you know what? I'm thankful that I woke up this morning and I have breath in my lungs and I can still accomplish and live in a way that is going to make a difference. And so, you know what? We all have one chance at this life. Don't waste it with misplaced priorities. And, we can allow things, our marriages can kind of begin to feel the burn if we begin to focus too heavily on academia and pour our passion. Some of us are very passionate and type A dudes or dudettes, and we can put that passion into all that we're doing. That is very important. But you know what? Nursing education is not more important. Your students are not more important than your spouse and other relationships. Put those boundaries on your schedule, those hard fixes where you don't respond to emails on weekends or after 6 p.m. Respect that schedule. Respect yourself, because I need to preach this to myself because I'm learning the hard way. I didn't have a breakdown, but I was beginning to really melt. And you know what? I don't want to go back to that path just because I can get things done. It's not worth it. You got to take care of yourself as well as those around you. And so, I want to share just a book that I came with that I brought with me to the North Shore. And I would consider this if you've got time to read, you don't even have to read because there's a TED Talk that Simon Sinek, the author of Start With Why, wrote. And this book really kind of inspired some of the things that I'm sharing today, as well as I felt, felt very impressed with as well as I began to think about life. But what Simon Sinek talks about is the importance of starting with why. Why do you do what you do? This, it's kind of written towards the business cultures that start with their why, their reason that they exist, and then they move out into their how they do what they do. And this is kind of a simple illustration that basically a lot of businesses focus on their what they do, all the services they provide, how they do it, and then their why gets lost in the shuffle. But we're not businesses as nurse educators, but what we really are is that we have a mission. We have a purpose. We have something to accomplish on this life. That's why you were placed on this earth. You are not an accident. And the bottom line is that those passions, those motivations, those desires that have been sometimes in hibernation or been forgotten, need to be restored. And we need to help our students also be inspired with, why do you want to be a nursing student? We're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. So this is not just for nursing educators, but how we as educators can help our students tap into their why, their motivations, and hopefully, begin to draw that out of them. Because in essence, your why, your purpose gives reason and meaning to your existence and all that you do as a nurse educator. And those educators that had those responses, you know what? They had lost sight of their why, and we're saying, you know what? Patient care is easier than students. I'm this close to checking out and going back into practice. And we've got to help our students see the value of what they do, of what a nurse does. And this is where we as educators can help our students tap into a higher why than passing the NCLEX. Passing the NCLEX, that's not a bad thing. It's going to get them into practice, but that's kind of more of a what. That's a what, we'll get you to pass the NCLEX. The question is, why do you want to pass the NCLEX? Why do you want to be a nurse? And this is where we want to enculturate in our programs. And as a faculty, we need to role model this. In the essence, we want to develop superheroes in scrubs who save patient lives. That's what a thinking nurse does who possesses clinical judgment. You have a S. You are a superhero because you can save a life and make a difference when you recognize a problem early and call the doctor. Make a difference in a patient's life. It becomes about the patient. But let's give our students a vision of being superheroes in scrubs, not just passing tests, and ultimately passing the NCLEX. And, we want to kind of, bring that spirit into all that we do. And so when we go into that P of purpose, I want to ask a question. Why are you a nurse educator? Why did you go into nursing education? Why did you go and get that advanced practice degree? For myself, I got my master's in nursing education and just recently completed my PhD. I'll share my why in just a few minutes. But what's your why? And if you have a clear sense of that why, I want you to write it down. And if you've got time and you want to be bold, put it in the chat. I would love to see that and kind of make it your declaration. This is why I do what I do. And that why inspires everything that you do, because when you lose sight of it, you begin to spiral and you begin to go down. And this is another reason why the why matters. It's motivation. And you know what? When your motivation is right, you're going to do what's needed. Every faculty in your department will do what's needed to strengthen and transform nursing education. Let me give you 3 examples of educators. You tell me which one of these are going to basically be transformers. And I think most of you reflect the first 2 of these at least, for sure. Number 1, nursing education is a calling. I felt a calling, a divine calling, to be and to serve in this capacity. Florence Nightingale, by the way, had a calling, if you read her biography, to strengthen and transform the profession of nursing. Second, you have a passion and love to teach. You love to teach and you love to share the values and the knowledge that you've acquired to the next generation of nurses. You know what? If you've got either one of these 2 whys that are part of your inner soup, you know what? You're going to do what's needed to strengthen and transform nursing education. But how about this why? I teach because it's not nursing practice. I kind of got tired of that or didn't really enjoy taking care of patients. So I'm teaching and I enjoy my schedule with summers off. Okay, there are some educators in that place, not many, but they're there. What are they going to do to transform? Are they going to go out of their way? Are they going to go the extra mile to do what's needed to transform and strengthen nursing education? I don't think so. And so you know what? The why matters because it influences how you teach and willing to put up with adversity. How many of you know that students don't like active learning? They resist it initially, but they begin to see it over time. But it takes resolve to do this. And so again, we don't want to be just those faculty that give students what they want. We want to give them what they need and innovate and use the right tools. And so when we have our why, for example, right here, right where it should be, that we have a pure motivation, a desire to love to teach and really want to be the best. Our how we teach becomes, I'm willing to do active learning. I'm willing to go out of my comfort zone to do educational best practices, unfolding case studies and other innovative resources. The what is kind of the outer circle of your syllabi and all the details of the testing, everything else. But what's most important for you as an educator is your why and how you teach, how you do it. And so again, recognize the significance of that. And I really believe that for myself, I have a rhetorical question for all of you. Why has nursing education not been transformed after Pat Benner's work that came out in 2010, Educating Nurses, A Call for Radical Transformation? That was 10 years ago. And we're still struggling to implement these paradigm shifts of bringing context to our practice, resisting lecture-heavy PowerPoints, and doing what's needed. I think many of us are doing that, and I think most of who are attending this live stream are on the cutting edge. But as a whole, we're struggling to transform. The academic practice gap has been around for almost 50 years in nursing education. Why hasn't it been addressed? Well, I think that, my perspective, we could have 101 different reasons, but I don't have any proof. But this is my hunch, my suspicion. It's not because of a lack of information. We've got all the information we need to strengthen and transform nursing education. It's that we as educators as a whole have lost sight of our why. Departments of nursing have lost sight of their why. And instead of doing what's needed, we're just kind of going through the motions, and we're burned out, we're stressed out. And you know what? If we don't recapture our why, nothing's going to change in nursing education. We can have all the innovative tools, Keith RN's case studies and handouts and all the things that I'm doing to work hard for you. But the bottom line is that if we're not doing, if our why influences our how, that's probably the most important thing I want to share tonight. Your why, and recapturing that why, is going to influence how you teach. And so I think the reason that we're not doing what's needed is because we're struggling with our whys. I think most of us have the right motivation to teach. We love our students. We want to teach. I think we've just kind of lost our first love, our passion for teaching. We've been kind of, academia is a joy-stealing environment, is it not? And the bottom line is, over time, it can kick our butts and we lose our joy and we lose our why. Let's just kind of be aware of that and kind of reflect on that. But our students, I want to kind of share for just a moment their why. We need to help our students who are self-centered and entitled, many of them, not all, but you know what I'm talking about, to get in touch with their why. Why do you want to be a nurse? That is a great question. Every one of you should be asking your students in their orientation, in a small group setting, and clinical post-conference in those early semesters. Why do you want to be a nurse? Some of your students have that sense of calling. Some of your students have a desire to serve and care and help others. But there are those students who have a why of, it's a secure recession-proof job, and I can make pretty good money. Okay. Not going to fault any of that, but which one of those students are going to put the extra effort in to be the best and not just good enough to pass the test? Should be obvious. And so, you know what? We got to help our students have a higher vision, a higher calling for nursing. This is where we as educators need to live this out, though. And, if we've lost our why, if we've lost our joy, you know what? We're not going to be able to encourage this and to replicate this in our students. It's got to start with us. Our students are watching us. And if we have the joy, if we have that value of what we do as nurses and all that that represents, the joy of serving others, making a difference, they're going to catch it. And we can help them steer the ship from making just kind of like I can make good money to help them see the value of serving and caring for others. But we've got to live it out. We've got to have our why intact. And so, a practical application of this is having a mission statement. Now, this is really interesting. All of our departments of nursing have a mission statement. Most of us don't even know what it is. When I ask that question at conferences and workshops, like about less than 10%, maybe 5% even know what their departmental mission statement is. Now, that mission statement's important. My PhD studies made it very clear that vision mission statements guide everything that is done in the curriculum and in the program. And yet most of us don't even know what it is. Is it a good one in your program? I hope so. Does it inspire? Does your mission statement inspire? Now, at a departmental level, it needs to. But more importantly, you and I need to have our own mission statement. Put in writing these simple principles. What is your vision as a nurse educator? What is your motivation to teach? What do you want to accomplish, and what values will you embody as a nurse educator? What's the legacy you want to leave? None of us are going to live forever on this earth. Your department, what's going to be there that says, I was here and I left a lasting difference because I taught differently, and my students and my faculty and even the culture was changed because I was here. Now, I have a blog on this topic because I could spend an entire Facebook Live on a mission statement, but I want to just give you wanted to kind of give you that kind of that thought and encouragement. But I have a blog on Keith RN. If you go to my website, keithrn.com, and go to my blogs and just search mission statement, I have a blog titled "Why Every Nursing Student Needs a Mission Statement." But that principles in that blog apply to educators as well. So it's easy to transfer and what that looks like. And so, if I'm going to be vulnerable and personal, this is my mission. Why have I been really working so hard over the last 8 years, since 2012, developing resources for nurse educators to give them the tools they need to transform the way they teach? Well, my cause begins with transforming nursing education by challenging the status quo. That, in essence, captures the essence. I believe that nursing education can be transformed. We resist change, we struggle with change, but I may be foolish enough, and I'm not foolish. I think I'm on the right track. It can change because you know why? One educator at a time. One department at a time. And as I communicate with educators from all around the country, and it's such a pleasure and a blessing, what keeps me going is that I can transform nursing education when one educator gets a vision for change, and I can help empower them to make that needed change. And so, what keeps me going and keeps me even though I'm tired is that my other kind of, besides the cause, is that my passion is to provide educators with the tools to transform the way nursing is taught to better prepare students for practice first, as well as licensure, which is a second but very important priority, and to empower educators to develop students to become superheroes and scrubs who save patient lives because they possess clinical judgment. You see, when we come down to it, the lack or the possession of clinical judgment in our students, which is currently lacking in the majority, it's a matter of life and death. Patients are dying because of nursing failure to rescue. It's in the literature. That's not okay. It shouldn't be okay with any of us. And we need to own that part. We need to do our part to transform the way we teach. And so again, that's what keeps me going. It's about life. It's about mission. It's about transforming. And you know what? I know that every one of you have got a similar passion. And we can share these principles of developing your why with your students. For many of us, you started your new year. You got a new group of recruits. New group of students. You know what? Let's keep them on track, because how many of you know that they will waver very quickly on this path of, well, of entitlement and what's in it for me kind of mindset in nursing education, and challenging your test questions and every little nuance, and becoming very self-centered more than you, and we need to draw them in and draw them back to see the value of caring and serving others. And so again, um, I want you to know that things can change. The educator who shared, I'm struggling, I'm kind of drifting. You know what? She sent me an email just the other day, and she says, you know what? Things are different. I was worried about her. I was worried, and I was praying for her. And she wrote me back and said, I've posted affirmations. I began to get in touch with my why. And one of the affirmations on my desk that I put to remind myself is, do not let anyone steal my joy. And she said, I will persevere. I have made a positive impact on the development of many students because they show up on my Facebook feed all the time. I just need to look for the joy. And we need to fight for joy sometimes as nurse educators. And so I want to encourage you to do that. And so I just want you to know that, I'm going to be going off the grid for a little bit here. I realize that I've got to start to focus a little bit more on what I'm doing with Keith RN. I've got a book that I wrote for students called Think Like a Nurse, Practical Prep for Professional Practice. This is in its second edition. It's 5 years old. You know what? I just finished my PhD. You know what that means? I've learned a ton about clinical judgment that needs to be updated in that book. And you know what? The third edition is going to be coming out by probably the first of next year, but I've got to stay focused on that. And so I'm going to probably lighten up my Facebook Lives, maybe just go once a month. So again, if you go to my Keith RN Facebook page and like it, you'll be reminded when I do go live. But I just want you to know that that book is a great resource for your students. So if you're looking for, again, those resources to transform nursing education, again, and you don't get my updates, go to keithrn.com, get the free COVID-19 case study, and get that, utilize that. It's a great open-ended case study as a respiratory oxygenation exemplar. And I've got other case studies. I've got the membership of thinklikeanurse.co, not .com. That's coming, but not right at this time. Thinklikeanurse.co, all-inclusive membership. You have a monthly or annual payment, departmental access at a discount. My passion is to provide the tools to strengthen and transform nursing education. And so as we just kind of go in closing tonight, with what I shared tonight, what was your big takeaway? And what questions do you have regarding your why and making this emphasis central, not only for yourself, but with your students? And so I'm just going to kind of look at the chat here and just kind of see what comes through here. And so I just wanted you to know that, great, got some people saying that, yeah, we use my book a lot. It's required and it has been adopted. And you know what? Actually, Dr. Pat Benner endorsed my textbook of the second edition when she helped me revise it and gave me some critical feedback. Dr. Benner, she is not an easy one to, she's had some critical feedback, but I did make it happen, and I got her testimonial on the back cover. So thankful for that. So let's look and see. I got some people who said that they like the idea of the mission statement, and I have a mission statement on my resume, says Mila. Well, Mila, I'd like to know, what is it? And if you can remember it, I'd love to see it in this chat, and you can kind of put it out there for all of us. And oh yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Put it on the, I see this link right here. I don't know who that person was, but somebody, I think, put out my mission statement. And again, Misty likes the idea of the mission statement. And let me just kind of see what I've got here and some other things here. My why, I like this. Ebony says this: my why is to create a new generation of nurses who care for every patient as if they are their families. Bringing compassion back to the bedside is my motto. Oh, Ebony, you are after my own heart, because you know what? In order to think like a nurse, our students need to care like a nurse. That's Chris Tanner's model of clinical judgment, by the way, in her article, Thinking Like a Nurse, makes it very clear that caring, compassion, engagement influence clinical judgment. Plus, it is a virtue ethic of our foundation as a profession that we need to restore because we're in danger of losing that. And the book that I've written, Think Like a Nurse, has a chapter on why the art of nursing is central to nursing practice. And so, Ebony, I talk about caring, compassion, and we need to intentionalize it. One thing I would say, Ebony, with that, go to my website, keithrn.com, go down to the footer, and you will see a link that says Teaching Caring. This is true for all of you who are watching this. If you want to be more intentional to teach caring with your students, to develop that foundation, I have some great handouts and tools that I developed with my students that help them to make it practical, because we've got to teach it. We've got to kind of not only role model caring, we've got to talk about it, talk about its origin, talk about it, the definition of caring as a nurse. And Dr. Benner has a great definition where she says, that caring as a nurse is in essence, the importance of seeing that patient, as the Good Samaritan did, and being moved with compassion and having that empathy for every patient we care for. So no, great insights. And so I'm just going to see what I've got for other thoughts in the chat here. Excellent. Just some thoughts about the book. But if I'd like to know if any of you have any thoughts about just anything else related to the mission statement and your why as an educator. And how are you doing right now? You know what? Let's just be real for a moment. How many of you are kind of on fumes, even at the beginning of the semester, if we're just starting? Some of you will go all year round, and that's not easy either. But how are you doing right now, and what do you plan to do as your next step? I'd love to know so I can just keep you on my radar and kind of share that. But Lisa says this: we had to write a mission statement in grad school for nurse education. I recall stating that I wanted to be a guide by their side instead of a sage on the stage. And Lisa, that's a great place to start. We need to guide their learning. They need to discover, and we need to guide them. And so, great statement. I would encourage us all too to look at our departmental mission statements. How inspiring are they? Could they be revised? Could they be revised and rewritten to really give an inspirational, aspirational vision of nursing education and what it means to be a nurse? I love the term. I don't know where it came from, but if I saw it somewhere, but superheroes in scrubs. It's not just for those that are at the front lines of the pandemic and COVID-19. Yes, we're calling them heroes and all that. But when you look at what a nurse does, regardless, they are superheroes in scrubs who save lives when they think like a nurse. And so let's get this. Let's give our students something that inspires. Let's kind of get beyond NCLEX success. That should be a given. If we teach and utilize educational best practices, let's inspire them with the importance of caring, compassion, and serving and caring for others. And whatever is important to you as an individual educator. Because, these mission statements are individual. I don't want to just kind of say like one size fits all, but just something that inspires. What inspires you? What would inspire your students to be the best and not just get by and pass the test, which many of them resort to. And so again, so helpful. Some of my student nurses intimidate me. It can be tough to lead them because of their know-it attitude. Judy, that is a really interesting challenge that I saw as well when I taught. And it's like, students who are novices have a lack of humility. I love the word intellectual humility. And, we have got to call it out. And we've got to address that because that's like a cancer. That's kind of uncivil. I shouldn't say kind of, it is. That pride, academic pride, in thinking that they know as much as you as a novice, inexperienced nurse in challenging faculty and doing some of those things, we've got to call that out. It's incivility, it's unprofessional, it's a professional act, it's unbecoming of a soon-to-be nursing professional. So yeah, let's talk about that. So Jennifer says this: I'm a little exhausted without a real break since summer was about preparing for fall. Excited to be back in person. That's great, Jennifer. It's good to always, to have that face to face with your students, your faculty. The collegiality, I hope, is present in your culture. But the bottom line is that if you're exhausted perpetually, again, it's a red flag. So let's be real. Let's take care of Jennifer. So Jennifer goes the distance for this academic year because you're needed. Every one of you are needed. We still have a faculty shortage in nursing education, and we want to retain our faculty as well as inspire them. And that's my heart, is to encourage you. I hope this was something you found helpful. And if you did find it helpful, know that this is recorded. So you know what? You can go to my Facebook page, drop the link into an email to your colleagues and say, hey, I found this helpful, and let's talk about this at our next staff meeting, and kind of have some dialogue about our why, and get inspired and get refreshed, because we can't just keep going. We can't keep running on fumes. Like a car, it's going to run out of gas, and then it's going to stop. And that's, kind of where we just have our mental bags checked and we just kind of lose sight of our why. So anyways, some thoughts there. So Lonnie, just got my credentials to teach. Awesome. You know what? You're going to make a difference, Lonnie. And it's great to have you in the profession of faculty. We need you. It sounds, and I hope that you are used to, and I know you will make a difference. And June, I know you're from Canada. Great to have Canadian educators from Alberta. And you're very welcome, June. It's a pleasure and a privilege. And to have educators from Canada who also, I think, face the same struggles that we do in the United States. And so I hope you find this helpful. And thank you again for your support and being an innovator in Canada. And so blessings to you. So anyways, I'm just going to kind of just see if there's anything else in the chat that catches my eye. And if not, we'll wrap this up in just a moment. Other than that, you know what? It's been a pleasure. I'm just going to see if Nancy has one thought here. She says, definitely the second. That change is hard. It's been my destiny, my oath, because it all just happened. I love it, teaching, and started tutoring, and now back in the classroom. Nancy, we should never retire. We all have something of value, regardless of the stage in our journey. And so glad to see you back in the classroom and re-energized and knowing what you're doing. And Deanna, love your why. Thanks for sharing this a few minutes ago, to share what I know with others and help students love nursing. That's really what we want our students to have, is a love for what we do as nurses. We make a difference by serving others. That's what made Mother Teresa great and influential around the world, because she sacrificially served as she cared for others. And you know what? She wasn't a nurse, but she was, in essence, the spirit of nursing, that caregiving spirit that we want to enculturate in our students as well, to love nursing, love caring for others, to see the value. Though our society, we're still respected. In some societies, some cultures, nursing's not respected. But the bottom line is that, we make a difference. And so anyways, thanks for sharing those thoughts. And I'm just going to see if anything else comes through. And Lonnie, you're my new mentor. You know what, Lonnie? I do have an email address, Lonnie, and this is true for all of you. You know what? I just want you to know that, all that I do with Keith RN, the tools and the resources are just part of what I do. I spend a lot of time answering emails. And you know what? It's my pleasure to serve your needs, to answer questions, challenges. If any of you just need to touch base, share a specific challenge, a struggle, you know what? I'm available. And I just want you to know that. I'm not out to sell you anything. I'm just available to serve you and what your needs are right now in nursing education. So again, it says keith@keithrn.com. That's my email. So don't hesitate to reach out. And with that, I want to thank you all for attending this Facebook Live on the value of why and your mission and what you accomplish and what you will accomplish as you maintain and recultivate that why in all that you do. Thanks so much. Until next time, have a great night. Bye.